LA City representatives are writing an old wrong in Silverlake.
They weren't wrong, though.
An LA neighborhood takes down street signs from the 90s that officials say discriminated against the LGBTQ plus community.
Cruising, of course, meant something very different.
That's putting it mildly.
It meant an opportunity for the LGBT community to try to find human connection and intimacy.
Is that what we were doing? Okay.
I was also surprised that these U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little, okay, it's just a no U-turn sign.
Girl, look at you. I believe you didn't know what was going on over there. Like, come on. Get a hold of yourself. You look ridiculous. You were getting no action in the early 2000s, late 90s. I know your type. Trust and believe, boo-boo.
But when you learn the history of it and you realize that these were used to profile gay people.
It ain't profiling if they're right. That's all I'm going to say.
It's good that we're finding the areas and the symbols within our own very city that continue to have these hateful remnants of the past.
Hateful? No. Hating? Yes. Because believe me, I was there in those days. I'm going to tell you guys what they won't tell you. And this video I'm making because people hit me up asking me why traffic signs are now considered homophobic. This one isn't one where I have to imagine the way it must have went down or where I have to really read anything about it. This is one where it's like, I was a part of this history, baby. So everybody gather around and listen to Uncle Ty. So back in the day, before Grindr, after the gay smoke signals, just joking, there were no gay smoke signals, but after the time we used to shoot pink flares into the sky so other gays would know we were there, just playing, that never happened either. But after the time when we used to get a hold of each other using 2 tin cups with some string, and okay, that didn't happen either. But this is the way that it used to go down, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about. Even though to tell you the way that it goes down, I'm gonna have to risk the fact that some of you are gonna judge me, but
do you want to hear this or not, Mr. Lovett?
And I know my family watches my YouTube, so I'm gonna tell you,
run away, Simba.
Because you may not want to hear everything I'm about to say, but it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. I'm sorry, you guys. I'll get a hold of myself. What do I always say? I'm just laughing so hard because I am really annoyed, but at the same time, I think it's funny the way that the community is now trying to paint everything a particular way when it comes to our history. But you know when something is a part of your growth or your community's growth, and yeah, maybe it wasn't the best time or the most shining example of what you guys were, but at the same time, it was a very real moment and there was a reason for all of it. And I don't think that reasons necessarily equate to excuses, but I do feel like sometimes if people have a better understanding of why things have gone down the way that they've gone down, then they don't seem quite as ridiculous. So what I decided to do, and before we go any further, that's what I'm supposed to say. Before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to comment just to help me on the algorithm, but you don't know what to comment, just put a knife, because other gays are going to come for my neck on this one, because again, this is going to be considered me airing out dirty laundry. And there's a couple of different versions of this news story, and I want to go through each of them, but they're all very short, so this won't take long. But at the same time, I think the wording and the way that they clip it in different ones is kind of important, because it's just a way that things were. So let's go through these and I'll explain to you guys what's going on here.
An LA neighborhood takes down street signs from the 90s that officials say discriminated against the LGBTQ plus community.
I have a problem with the term discriminated because honestly, this wasn't a matter of discrimination, and we will get to it, but just put a pin in that.
The signs that read no cruising and prohibited U-turns were installed in Silverlake.
And I would maintain that if you really support the community, you should leave unnecessary no U-turn signs up because that shit is gay.
It was an area known to be a hotspot for gay men.
And a hot spot it was. Keep in mind that I got to LA in 2003, a fresh-faced young ingenue, ready to make my way in the big city. Still pulling the cotton out of my hair from Casa Grande, Arizona. Just playing. I was already living in Phoenix at that time. I had lived in Vegas in between. So even though I was young-ish, I was still a jaded queen. But I was kind of a jaded queen. I had been around a bit. I knew those streets. Like the life that they're talking about right now when they're talking about cruising and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I was a part of the action.
LA City Council members Hugo Soto Martinez and
More like Hugo Soto Martinez, am I right?
Nithya Raman were on hand today to help remove the signs. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
See, now that I have a problem with, because it makes it sound very benign when it says that we were just trying to meet up with each other. To be 100% honest, we were fornicating in those streets. Technically, where they're hanging out right now when they're taking the sign down, I literally a guy right under that street light, because this same area where they're at is the Sunset Junction area. That's what it's known as. And that area has a different kind of gay, because the West Hollywood gays are more like the clubby type gays. And then you go to Silverlake, which is where Sunset Junction is, and they're a lot more what you would call rough trade. And I liked the rough trade guys. If you guys aren't familiar with rough trade guys, in a lot of cases, they're going to be Latino, black, or white guys that have a lot of flavor. That was more what was in that area, and that was my vibe. And so one night at the festival called Sunset Junction, which I may talk about on a video because it's actually a part of gay history, and I hadn't realized how much of a part of gay history it was. I just went to it as a fun festival because one of my good friends, his name was Jens, he lived in that area, and I got really drunk. I started calling it Sunset Drunction after that because I got so drunk. But my friend Jens went to put me to sleep, you know, in one of his spare bedrooms, which makes it sound bad. He went to put me to sleep, but he did actually, like, you know, he was a good friend. And so he was like, let me make sure you get tucked in and, you know where everything's at. There's a bathroom, because I hadn't been to him and his husband, Alan's house before that. And I got so drunk that I wasn't going to be able to drive home. So my shoes had gotten really muddy because I stepped in this mud hole somehow. That sounds bad, but it's literally what happened. And so my shoes and socks were being washed because of the mud situation. And so what I did was, at a point in the night, I began to feel a little frisky, and I was like, I know what these streets are about. So I didn't want to go through his front door, and I was drunk, mind you, but it was probably like 3:30 a.m. And so I jumped out of the window of his spare bedroom, and then I noticed that somebody's chanclas, otherwise known as flip-flops, but I'm Mexican, so chanclas, someone's chanclas were right outside of the window, which I knew they had to be either Jens or his husband Alan's chanclas. I hijacked those chanclas. I went walking down that street, which is by Circus of Books, if you guys are familiar with that area. And there was this guy there that was down for it. And literally, we did what we did right there under the streetlight. So you can kind of see how, with that being the definition of cruising, and no gays better come for me, because you know that that's what cruising really is. And yeah, maybe you'll be a little more discreet about it, like you'll go into your car, but that is what cruising is. So you imagine you're living in a neighborhood that is in LA, and technically not a low rent neighborhood, even though my behavior was low rent, but it's not a low rent neighborhood, and you've literally got gays on the streets in front of your place. Tell me that you wouldn't be like, okay, this doesn't need to happen like this. And like I said, I was on foot, but in a lot of cases, it would just be guys cruising, but we'll keep going.
Cruising, of course, meant something very different. It meant an opportunity for the LGBT community to try to find human connection and intimacy.
We were literally looking for sex. That's what bothers me, and the reason that I think that it's important to be honest about these things, because if you want to say that we have evolved as a community past that, and now we're all on Grindr doing the same thing except for just using our phones and having people come to us or we go to them, but stop trying to make it seem more innocent than it was, because you're trying to create a narrative. If you want to say that we as a community have evolved past that and now we can be trusted unfettered in the streets, I'll accept that. I don't know that it's true, but I will accept it.
these are kind of a relic of an era of the 90s when gay men would meet up here after hours.
I was also surprised that these U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little, okay, it's just a no U-turn sign. But when you learn the history of it...
I always knew what the U-turn signs were because these no U-turn signs were unnecessary in the first place. They literally put them in because we were all, if given the chance, driving around and cruising because you knew after the bars closed, you could run over to that area if that was what you liked and go get what you wanted. I saw somebody on a video, the Black Conservative, that's who I saw, and I like his channel, but on this one, I was like, yeah, this guy obviously doesn't know the inside, which how could you if you're not gay? But on the Black Conservative, he was saying like that now they're going to put people in danger because they're taking down the U-turn signs in these particular areas just to prove how woke they are. And that's not the case. These no U-turn signs were unnecessary in the first place. And then I also saw him saying that this was probably men trying to pick up prostitutes. No, that was over near Hunter's on Santa Monica was where that was. This is Silverlake that I'm talking about. Don't get me wrong. It did look like prostitution because you just see guys jumping from one car to the next. Well, if people liked you like that. But yeah, you would see sometimes guys just jump from one car to the next. And like I said, I know all of this is considered airing out dirty laundry to the gay community, but this is what it is, and it makes it make more sense than just being like, oh, those signs are discriminatory. It's like, no, they're really not. It was necessary for that time.
And you realize that these were used to profile gay people. It's so important that we have these removed.
And like I said, it's not profiling if they're right. And I really do stand by, I'm not trying to be mean, but if you look at that queen, maybe a girl is their name, that is the kind of queen that would get no action. I mean, that queen was wearing slides on the day that they took those down. Who wears slides when you know you're going to an event? No presentation whatsoever. And I don't mean to be snotty, but I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of person actually did go to that area for human connection and whatever else bullshit that he said earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy that looked like that, or I should say a person that looked like that, was going there to chat. But for the ones of us that really got down, yeah, it was dangerous because you'd have to, in a lot of cases, because, I only did it in the streets like that one time because I was drunk. But usually you'd find some place that was a little more discreet, like an alley, which that area doesn't have a lot of alleys, but you'd find like a nook or a spot you could go to where people couldn't see you. And with it being the guys that were a little bit more on the gangbanger side looking, which is its own thing. I'm not going to pretend that I'm never into that because even to this day, I'm sometimes into that. But you didn't know if you were going to get a blowjob or get busted in your face. That's 100% honest. You were like, either way, I'm going to go around this building to find out. And thankfully, I never had anything like that happen to me. One time I had a guy pull a gun on me. At some point, I'll tell the story, which I know I've told you guys. I'll tell you a bunch of stories, but we're going to be friends for a long time. So everything I ever say that I'm going to tell you guys, one day I will tell you. Just today ain't that day, Mary.
LA City representatives are righting an old wrong in Silverlake. Here it is. And it also to do with street signs that read no U-turn. It came down today. The signs, in addition to no cruising signs, were posted in the 1990s by neighbors who were targeting LGBTQ community members.
Yeah, and the neighbors weren't just targeting us. Like I told you guys, some of us were doing some things in those neighborhoods that upstanding people, gay or straight, probably wouldn't want happening in their neighborhood, especially right on the street. Literally, that's the way we were getting down there. So be honest, when you look at number of sexual partners for a gay man as opposed to that of a straight man, there's a reason you hear about those numbers, because we are a lot less inhibited. And some of it does come from the fact that in certain ways we were raised with a lot of shame. So when you actually came out, then yeah, you did go a little bit crazy. And that's what I think this is a good opportunity for them to talk about. If you want to talk about the history of gay and the reason that we've behaved certain ways that we've behaved, talk about that. To me, that's helpful to the community, just to be like, look, this is how repressed we were, because it really did stem from that. Even with myself, it was like, like things weren't the way they are now. Now, being a gay man, you can go to the grocery store and meet somebody. You also can meet people at parties. You can meet people anywhere. Straight people can meet people now. So for them to say we're taking down the signs for that reason, I get it. And maybe it is discriminatory at this point to continue to do that specifically for gay men. Now it would be profiling, because sometimes you are just talking to another guy in the streets, just like you guys sometimes talk in the streets. But back then, you also had a lot of married men that were on the down low that would go cruising in those areas. And that's usually who was in the cars like that, because for any of us that were hanging out in the bars in that area or any kind of the nightlife in that area, we were usually on foot just walking. So a no cruising sign meant nothing to us. But there were a couple of times that I was cruising and I was like, these hating ass no U-turn signs. And then Griffith Park, which is where they also say one of the U-turn signs was, all through Griffith Park there were people cruising. I was just watching a story about San Francisco not too long ago where they had a huge problem, no surprise, in one of their parks back in like the 80s or something like that, where families were having the same thing and being like, our kids are trying to get home from school during the day, and people were behaving like I said. So yeah, maybe it is important to point out that we've grown as gay men and now we're doing things in a more respectable manner. But to deny it altogether and act like it was just discrimination from the beginning, not so much.
It was no coincidence that these signs were put up after the LGBT community continued to grow more in the 90s here in Silverlake.
Because we were like roaches in those streets, girl. This guy either is lying or he didn't know how to have a good time. Because, yeah.
In fact, they was part of the reason they were probably put up was because there was an LGBT bar that was just literally down the street.
Yes, that will attract us. You might as well stop calling them gay bars and call them milkshakes, because it will bring all the boys to the yard.
From the same area. It's good that we're finding the areas and the symbols within our own very city that continue to have these hateful remnants of the past.
It does bother me that he said remnants instead of remnants, but whatever. I'm not going to be that guy. But what I will do is say that's what bothers me the most about all of this. I'm tired of people calling things hate that did not stem from hate. Like I said, if you want to call it hating, because those no U-turn signs really would cock block you. But also, if you saw the sign they took down, it said no U-turns from midnight to 6 a.m. And if you think about it, you shouldn't need to do enough U-turns between midnight and 6 a.m. on any street, even in LA, that somebody actually notices and can ticket you. That right there is shady behavior. You're either cruising or you are going to rob someone's house. So my point is, if you want to say that we as a community have grown past that and we no longer need that, if you want to say that we've evolved, that's something that I will accept. But to say that those signs were a symbol of any kind of discrimination or just hate, to me, is not fair to the history of being gay, and also is not fair to the neighbors in that area that it wasn't about homophobia. And it really is important to me to take accountability for kind of what the community has been, and at least counter when these people that are ultra liberal and are woke want to be like, it's just discriminatory. I feel like we as gays and LGBT in general do have a responsibility to be accountable for what our part has been in some of our own victimizations. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I know some of you are going to judge me. I gotta admit, I don't really care. As always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.